When you put on the uniform of a state trooper, you prepare for reckless drivers, criminals, domestic disputes, and tragic wrecks. You know you're stepping into the gray between order and chaos every shift. No one tells you about the trees. Most people see trees as scenery. Over my career, I developed a life or death relationship with them. To me, they weren't scenery. They were roadblocks, moving targets, and on 2 occasions, well, they basically tried to kill me. The first time nature almost took me off the road, I was a rookie. Still wet behind the ears, full of that adrenaline that makes you feel invincible. It was a miserable night. A storm ripped through the county, tearing down power lines and tossing branches across the blacktop. Then the call. An injury wreck across the county. Someone was hurt and needed us there now. I wanted to prove myself, so I took a shortcut down some winding back roads to shave some minutes off my response time. Big mistake. I rounded a sharp, blind curve. Rain blinded my windshield. There it was. A massive tree, blocking the entire roadway. At the speed I was doing, braking was out of the question. Hydroplaning into an oak meant a guaranteed trip to the ER, or worse. I had no time to think, only to react. I swerved, threw the Crown Vic toward the descending hillside off to the left side of the road. For a split second, I knew I was done. The cruiser went airborne, and I was positive I'd flip or wrap it around a stump. But the heavy cruiser bit into the mud. I drifted sideways along the face of the hill, fought the wheel, bounced back onto the pavement on the other side of the tree. I never lifted off the gas. I straightened the wheel and kept going like I'd meant to do it. Inside, my heart hammered. I responded to the rest of that call a lot slower. That was my warning shot. Years later, on Kentucky 7 in Letcher County, the trees wouldn't just block my path. They came looking for me. It was a rainy spring Friday near Isom. I was responding to a theft report, following the victim toward the scene. The rain was coming down in sheets. My main thought was how miserable it would be to step out, get soaked, and smell like a wet dog the rest of my shift. As we drove down Kentucky 7 towards Colson, the sky turned angry. Straight line winds rushed in. Suddenly, I rolled up on a massive line of stopped traffic. On these mountain roads, that usually means a bad wreck ahead. I flipped on my lights, pulled out of the lane, and eased past a long line of coal and log trucks. At the front, there was no wreck, just another massive tree spanning the 2-lane road. Too large for the trucks to drive over it. I radioed Post to tell them that there was a major traffic hazard on Kentucky 7. The highway department needed to respond with heavy equipment. The rain eased for a second, so I stepped out to grab some rain gear and find some road flares from the trunk. Then the nightmare started. A sharp, booming crack echoed through the mountains. I jumped back, looked up, and saw the top of a massive tree shifting, moving toward the canopy. I bolted behind the nearest coal truck just as a massive thump hit the truck behind me. Then the chain reaction began. One after another, massive trees snapped and fell into each other. It looked like the mountainside started sliding toward the road, straight down toward everyone trapped below, including me. I scrambled into my cruiser, grabbed the mic, and told Post that I was boxed in. I couldn't move, and neither could anybody else. Right as the words left my mouth, a large branch slammed into my driver's side front fender. No one was moving. A few drivers were frantically trying to reverse over smaller fallen trees. But in a rear-wheel drive Crown Vic, I didn't have that option. I sat there a second and thought, sit and get pounded into the ground like a nail from a hammer, or do something. I jumped out and ran to the tree blocking the road, tore a few limbs off with my hands, but they were too thick. I needed something that would cut through it. Deep in my trunk, under all my gear, was a small camping saw I'd bought for marijuana eradication. It looked enormous in my memory, but in reality, it wasn't. It was all I had, though. I grabbed it and started sawing like a madman. Every few seconds, another tree popped above me, sliding down the north edge of the road. It looked like carpet, only green, that was just rolling towards us. The more they cracked, the harder I sawed. Finally, a coal truck driver snapped out of it, jumped out of his rig, and asked me if he could help. I asked him if he had a chain. He grabbed what he had, we hooked it around the main trunk that I'd just sawed, and he threw his coal truck into reverse, hit the gas, and was able to drag the tree just enough to clear a single lane. Go, go, go! I waved, directing traffic through the gap. Within 2 minutes, we emptied the danger zone. Not a second too soon. A massive volley of trees crashed down right where those cars had been, sitting moments before. If we hadn't moved, people would have been crushed. I cleared the area, heart pounding, drenched in rain, leaves and bark plastered to my rain suit and to the hood of my cruiser. Dispatch chimed back in. A potentially fatal crash in the next county needed a response, and I was a reconstructionist. On my way to that scene, I cut through 2 more trees, much smaller than the one that blocked the road before, thankfully. I drove straight to the next scene. When I jumped out to help my coworker, I must have looked like a creature from the Black Lagoon. He blinked, took in the leaves stuck to my chest, and asked, "Brother, what in the world have you been into?" I wiped my hands, shook my head, and said, "Brother, don't ask." Sometimes the job is dealing with the worst of humanity. Sometimes it's surviving gravity and a bad attitude from Mother Nature. Thanks for listening to Into the Gray. Stay safe out there and watch the trees. I'll see you a little further down the road.